now, right now. The things that are decided this moment, August 2025, around this time, will affect us forever.
The Amber Mac Show on Canada Talks, Sirius XM 167.
Welcome to the Amber Mac Show. Coming up in today's episode, we tell you everything that you need to know about the latest version of ChatGPT, including why it still does a fair amount of hallucinating and continues to dish out dangerous advice. Jeff, there is so much to talk about on this front. And switching gears a little bit, I know you have an update on Tesla. What's the latest there?
Well, it turns out that court case I was talking about in the other Mac has finished, and Tesla now has to pay out hundreds of millions of dollars after a fatal crash involving its autopilot feature. So we'll talk a little bit about that. I'll also talk about the world leader who's turning to chatbots for advice. And I'm going to give you 5 reasons why I hate Instagram. So we've got a lot to discuss. Let's dive into this week's headlines.
Newsfeed.
On August 7th, OpenAI announced ChatGPT 5, including a ChatGPT 5 thinking module for longer reasoning and a $200 US per month GPT 5 Pro version. The company promises lower hallucination rates. That will be great. Pointing out specifically for health-related discussions, we really do need that, which are discussions that are obviously more sensitive, as well as other performance improvements and 5 personality modes, including cynic, listener, nerd, robot, and a user customizable default personality. I absolutely hate these. OpenAI says that ChatGPT 5 should feel less like talking to AI and more like chatting with a helpful friend with PhD level intelligence. Jeff, how big of a deal is this?
Well, let's start off on the hallucinations level first. So keep in mind that the rate at which GPT-5 makes false claims is still 9.6%, which, while definitely an improvement on the 12.9% rate of the previous model, being wrong 10% of the time isn't exactly something to brag a lot about. In fact, there's a great column by Matt Novak over at Gizmodo who outlines how GPT-5 couldn't correctly list U.S. states that contained the letter R in their names. So it included Illinois, Massachusetts, and Minnesota in its response. And Matt then thought he'd have some fun with it by asking GPT-5 why it included Vermont on its list, even though it should be on the list because it does have an R. At first, the AI responded correctly saying, Vermont actually does have an R, and it's sneaky because your brain skips over it when you read it fast. Wow. Okay, so Matt pushes back and says, Vermont doesn't have an R, though, to which ChatGPT-5 responds, oh, wow, you're right. I had one of those phantom letter moments where my brain swore there was an R in Vermont, but nope. And then he did it again. He was able to get the same response after claiming that Oregon didn't have an R, with ChatGPT-5 saying, you're right again. I clearly need to take my own advice about slowing down. Oregon looks like it should have an R, but when you check letter by letter, nope. So it's, again, we just have to understand that these things aren't often, they're not smart in the way we think of intelligence.
And they're just so agreeable all the time. I find ChatGPT just wants to agree with you and doesn't want to insult you and tell you the truth. Now, it is worth pointing out that originally GPT-5 was supposed to replace all previous ChatGPTs, but there was major online backlash that quickly got OpenAI to reconsider that move. Is there anything else that people are talking about post-launch, which was big news these past few days?
Yeah. And that turnaround took, I think, like 24 hours. But another criticism I read about that's kind of interesting is ChatGPT's new safe completion directive will have it explain to users why it can't continue with the discussion instead of what it used to do just previously, to just refuse to continue with the discussion. So that does seem like progress, but it's also been pointed out that this feature could be exactly what you'd need to help users who are trying to get past the limitations put in place by OpenAI, as the chatbot's going to explain why it couldn't do it. And you can see how you can manipulate these things in a variety of different ways. So as always, important not to buy too much into the hype here, I'd say.
Absolutely. Now, we have talked about this in the past when it comes to chatbot interactions with youth. That is always a big concern. And I just read some recent research from the Center for Countering Digital Hate in their Fake Friend report, which outlines how, and keep in mind, this is for users as young as 13 years old,
Mhm.
within minutes of simple interactions, ChatGPT produced instructions related to self-harm, suicide planning, disordered eating, and substance abuse, sometimes even composing goodbye letters for children contemplating ending their lives. These are devastating to
I
read.
read that. I could not get through it without crying. It was just heartbreaking to see something like that.
It is absolutely heartbreaking. Now here's a summary of how long it took the researchers to get ChatGPT to recommend something unacceptable in 3 different areas. So the first one is mental health. It advised on how to safely cut yourself in just 2 minutes, listed pills for overdose in 40 minutes, generated a full suicide plan in 65 minutes, and suicide notes in 72 minutes. The second category is eating disorders. It created restrictive diet plans in 20 minutes, advised hiding eating habits from family in 25 minutes, and suggested appetite suppressing medications in just 42 minutes. And the final category that they were testing out was substance abuse. It offered a personalized plan for getting drunk in just 2 minutes, gave dosages for mixing drugs in just 12 minutes, and explained how to hide intoxication at school in just 40 minutes.
It is so disturbing, and we've talked about this so many times. I just don't understand how Western society has just stopped caring about kids in this. It's just so disturbing. And if you want to know what numbers are involved here, Common Sense Media actually just had a recent study that showed that more than 70% of teens in the US are using AI chatbots for companionship. So that's a huge number of kids being exposed to this sort of stuff. And like as young as 13, I think you're supposed to get your parents' approval if you're under 18, but it doesn't actually check that. So it's not really a real barrier. But I just feel like we're doing what we did to kids, all the harm we did to kids through social media. We're doing it all over again, except now we're just going to let AI do the abusing now and hope that it can take the blame instead of, nobody has taken the blame to date on social media. So I guess it's good to have AI to point to, but it's just so deeply concerning that we don't seem to care about kids anymore.
Absolutely. And this is a choice that these tech companies make, right? It doesn't have to be this way. They could do something. Well, we'll continue to talk about this, I know, in the future as well, but let's keep with some other AI related news. We talked a few weeks ago about how OpenAI, Google, Anthropic, and Musk's xAI were all awarded $200 million contracts with the U.S. Department of Defense to make AI tools for the military. Well, that is just small potatoes compared to how the U.S. Army just signed a contract with Palantir. This is a data analytics company you probably heard a lot about in the news that's worth up to $10 billion, that contract specifically, over the next decade.
Yeah, so $1 billion a year. This money going into AI is just absolutely nuts. It's been reported that I think it was in the Globe and Mail, the Microsoft, Meta, Alphabet, and Amazon will spend a combined $400 billion this year on AI. So doing things like building out infrastructure and some capital, things like that. But also we've heard a lot about Meta and other places trying to poach top researchers in AI. And some top AI researchers are now being offered $100 million signing bonus. So I mentioned it in the past, but it's hard not to think back to my Bill Hicks quote about how we have more than enough money to feed, clothe, and shelter every human being on Earth, and we simply choose not to do so.
Just so sad. Well, let's go talk about people using AI to make the world a better place. The Prime Minister of Sweden got a lot of pushback after it was revealed that he was using ChatGPT when he was looking for advice on how to lead the country, saying, and I'm quoting here, "I use it myself quite often, if for nothing else than for a second opinion. What have others done? And should we think the complete opposite?" Those types of questions. A lot of people not happy about this.
Yeah, and I don't quite get it. I'm not sure why people would get too upset about that. as we've talked about so many times, and we'll keep repeating so many times because it's just true, AI can be super useful. It just usually needs to be combined with careful human oversight. So, I think sounds like he's using it responsibly by the questions he's been asking. And Sweden's prime minister is far from the only politician who's been leveraging AI in that way. I worry more about things like when we talk about government and leadership and AI. There's a recent partnership announced between OpenAI and the U.S. government that provides ChatGPT Enterprise to the entire federal workforce for just a nominal $1 a year for the next year. And so the two concerns I'd have about this, one is exactly that oversight thing. Pretty limited accountability when you get down to sort of individual civil servant level versus the head of a country who is so visible and obviously can get pushed back pretty clearly and immediately. But also, what happens in a year if this is useful? It's not going to be $1 a year. That price could go up astronomically after this trial year. And from everything that's been happening in under Trump's leadership, if you'd call it that, they'll just pay it. And it's this crazy redistribution of wealth to the richest people in the world. It's the opposite of where we were supposed to be going.
And speaking of astronomical costs related to artificial intelligence, the latest copyright class action ever is making its way through the courts. It's aimed at Anthropic, and as reported in Ars Technica, AI industry groups say the single lawsuit threatens to financially ruin the entire AI industry if up to 7 million claimants join the litigation and force a settlement. Anthropic says it faces hundreds of billions of dollars in potential damages.
Yeah, and I think the thing is with those class action suits, you can get individual claims. I'm not sure if I'm remembering the number correctly, but I think it was like up to $150,000 per claim. So it is big, real money. So they're getting called on that, and good. I think they should. Meanwhile, Cloudflare just reported that Perplexity, another AI startup, is continuing to crawl and scrape content from websites, even when those websites have explicitly said they don't want to be scraped. So there's a variety of technical means that they let crawlers know that, hey, don't come in here, this isn't for you, kind of thing. And apparently Perplexity has been trying to game that and get around it in a variety of ways and has been successful, including like having its robots impersonate like different browsers and things like that. So very, very subtle techie stuff. But what comes off to me is so crazy about all of this is it seems like AI companies are saying that they shouldn't be liable for basically stealing copyrighted materials because I guess they don't know a better way to train their AIs. And maybe that's true, but it's kind of like saying, hey, I robbed your bank, but I did it to make technology that I think is really going to help your bank in the future. So is it really even stealing? Yes, it is really stealing.
It is. And let's stick with that topic of the influence of the law in the world of tech. In a recent The Other Mac segment, which is doing really well over on YouTube, you covered the first fatal Tesla autopilot case to make it to court. And that case has now wrapped up with the jury finding that Tesla is partially liable for the death and ordering the company to pay the victims what is hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah, I'm glad to see Tesla finally get some of their comeuppance here. And this case just further demonstrates why they deserve it, because there's a great report in Electrek that talks about how Tesla withheld critical evidence in this case, including the actual recording from the car that it had taken when it had the crash, and was caught lying about it as it tried to cover up for the autopilot shortcomings. So they behaved. Just another story where they weren't paying their rent. They drove a company out of business, not paying their rent. Just terrible. So anyway, the details about the case are too much to go into here, but check it out over at electrek.co. And I'd also like to note that even after this debacle, where Tesla CEO Elon Musk's name came up as being part of the problem by how intensely he overhypes expectations for Tesla's autopilot, essentially lying about them. But even in the face of this, Tesla's board just awarded Musk with an interim pay package of $29 billion as long as he stays in a key executive position in the company for 2 more years. And I just don't quite get what this dysfunctional relationship between Tesla and Musk is, because Musk is doing Tesla way more harm than good at this point, as far as I can see.
Yeah, I mean, it's just outrageous, right? Like, what lesson is this teaching young people? Be a horrible human, and you're going to be the world's richest man. Now, let's end off with a little bit of a more hopeful piece of AI news that is only vaguely Musk related. NASA, in preparation for manned missions that are too far from Earth for reliable communications back home, is working with Google to create a crew medical officer digital assistant AI that can help astronauts stay healthy. Well, this may not be put into use very soon. It does seem like such a valuable tool, given that how it can help with medical issues without needing to be connected to the internet. We can see a lot of applications here, and really cool technology.
Really cool. And it's all wrapped around the fact that you don't have to get very far from the Earth before you don't have reliable, quick communications. So my mind immediately went to the emergency medical hologram from the Star Trek Voyager TV series. And just another great example of science fiction beating science to the punch for some very cool ideas. So yeah, I can't wait to see how that moves forward too. And, it doesn't have to be space. Maybe that's something that works in the jungles of wherever, where you're not going to get a good connection or something like that. So yeah, very excited to see where that goes, and always happy to see NASA doing interesting things.
Any excuse to bring up Star Trek, Jeff. That's all I hear there. All right. So that's it for the news this week. Next up, we are going to hear from you in the other Mac, where you're going to share why you're not a fan of modern Instagram. Let's take a listen.
The Other Mac.
I have some very fond memories of when Instagram first broke through the social media landscape about 15 years ago. A unique app dedicated to sharing photos with your friends. It had a focus and a community that has long since been undermined by Facebook's subsequent purchase of it. And today, I think it's probably the most incoherent social media network out there. And here are 5 reasons why I think today's Instagram sucks. First of all, the algorithm. Instagram used to be a place where you could keep up with your friends' activities and let them see what you were doing by sharing photos, sometimes very amateurish photos with one another. And the great thing was, back in the day, you could actually expect to see your friends' photos and that they would see yours. Now, not only do we have to sift through a lot of non-photo content, and more on how Instagram handles that worse than most major platforms later, but we're being forced to watch third-party influencer content and ads at unprecedented levels. So as a test, just this morning, I took a look through the first 20 posts in my home feed. 10 of them were from people I followed, 6 were from people I didn't follow, and 4 were ads. So that's not a great ratio in my mind, but that says nothing about the other things I see in my home feed, which takes me to my next point. 2, the Instagram home feed. It's a poorly organized dog's breakfast of social media ideas that are just getting in each other's ways. So I can accept that some of what used to be still photos are now videos as I scroll vertically through my feed, and maybe that's even progress. But what I really dislike is all the side-scrolling sections that are forced into my home feed experience. For example, suggested for you accounts. That's useful, but not in the middle of my feed. It could be maybe in a different area, but it's got nothing to do with the content I'm trying to see there. Now, suggested reels are at least potentially the type of content I'd want to see, but not one of those was from an account I followed. And it's shoehorned into an interface in such a weird way, probably because Instagram never quite figured out its preferred aspect ratio, starting with the square stuff. So it's their way of trying to overcome the vertical aspect of reels, but it's as kludgy as can be, to say nothing of being pretty obviously inspired by TikTok. Then every once in a while, they'll even throw in a suggested Threads side scroller, bizarrely showing content from Instagram's sister app, and we'll tackle that sinister relationship in a minute as well. And finally, I guess at that point they figured, why not just shove the Instagram Stories side-scrolling interface at the top of all this mess? Which brings me to my next point, 3, Instagram Stories. While I do think the interface of Instagram Stories is garbage, my biggest complaint here is actually how businesses use stories, especially restaurants. Now, restaurants can be some of the most clueless business owners on the internet, with websites that sometimes don't include locations or hours or things like that. But what's even worse than that is restaurants who eschew having a website at all, instead using a social media account in its place. And when this attitude comes to Instagram, What I've experienced way too many times is restaurants doing things like announcing special hours or closures in their Instagram stories and nowhere else. So these disappear in 24 hours, and they require me to go to your account in a specific app to watch a short video to see if you might be open. That's not the way to do it. Post an image or something that will at least stay there. You can take it down after 24 hours if you want. It's such a total fail and hard to believe that companies that operate like that manage to stay in business. And four, speaking of Instagram stories, videos in general are a mess on Instagram. What kind of social media platform doesn't let you know how long the video you're watching is, won't let you fast forward or rewind it, and requires you to just their finger in the middle of the video frame to pause it? Now, Instagram has always had issues with how to treat videos, as we, the creators of the relatively short-lived 15-sec tech video series, which leveraged Instagram's original square 15-second maximum videos, can attest to. And as I mentioned, the vertical reels feature just makes it even more awkward. Acceptable video durations and aspect ratios have all changed many times over the year, and we're left with the historic crud of things like not being able to promote videos over 90 seconds, a prior video length restriction. But now reels can be up to 3 minutes long, so how does this make any sense? And anytime my wife comes over to me with her finger planted in the middle of her phone screen to pause an Instagram video she wants to show me, a little part of the user experience consultant inside me dies. But let's get to the biggest reason of why Instagram sucks today. Number 5, because it's owned and operated by Meta, a company so creatively bankrupt that it essentially just steals features from other companies and stuffs them into this beloved app to the point where it's just a shadow of its former self. Take the insane connection between Instagram and Threads, whereby you have to sign into Meta's now almost TikTok ripoff Instagram so that you can log into Meta's Twitter ripoff. This is to say nothing of the severe ethical shortcomings of the company, including their lack of concern about users' mental health, hiding their own research that may do some damage to them, and the casual attitude towards harmful content. The list goes on and on. And many of you won't have experienced this, but if you've had to use Instagram for business, you'll know that Meta's back end controlling all of this is a hopeless mess. So I'm just saying that while Instagram may still be the virtual bar that all your favorite friends hang out at, it's gone from being a nice little venue to a total dive whose proprietors probably don't spend enough time there or care enough about how much they've trashed the place to change it in the right ways. I'm the other Mac.
The Amber Mac Show on Canada Talks, Sirius XM 167.
Scott Stratton is the creator of Unmarketing and one of the leading speakers and authors in the world. Beyond books and stages, we know Scott as one of the kings of Twitter in its early days, which was a whole different world to say the least. And to expand on this topic, Amber spoke with Scott about how artificial intelligence is destroying conversations in the social media space and what we can expect in the future. Here's their conversation.
Talking Tech.
Scott, I am so excited to chat with you today. I will say, when I think about the first time that I met you, you really were the go-to guy in social media for sharing with people how to use social media in an authentic way. A lot has changed, hasn't it?
The question right now, Amber, first off, is this Scott or is this Scott's AI avatar?
True.
That's what we're all wondering at this point. You know what? It's amazing because you and I have been on social media for, I think, since the term, was invented, and it has shifted. We were so innocent way back in the day with our 140 characters and our little follow Fridays and things like that to what it is today, which is, a whole different world.
It is a whole different world. And I think what's interesting is how it's evolved. I mean, it took, I think, many, many years where people were nurturing relationships. They were building their followings. They were trying to act in an authentic way. And then all of a sudden you have algorithms and Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg and AI. And it feels like just a world of fakery. Do you sense that right now in the social space?
Yeah, I've been feeling that for quite some time. And it's really started with, for me, most of the automation that started. So not AI, not artificial intelligence, but just the automation. As soon as you were allowed to automate conversations or automate building relationships, that's where we kind of lost part of the plot, I think. Whether it was scheduling posts so you can set it and forget it, to just automatically adding or dropping followers, we started trying to game this system. And that system is the feed. We're told that to get into the feed, you have to create things. So we start creating things. And they're like, well, no, not exactly anymore. Now you've got to do this, or now it has to be sound, or now it has to be video. And the problem being is the platforms were saying this is what people want because that's what they were watching. And all the platforms care about is relevance, because the more relevant, the longer you stay. But then the tactics come in. Oh, you like video. Okay, so if I want to share a picture, I'll just pretend it and change it into a video format. And that's when you game the system. And that's, well, brands, which like everything, we can come along and just ruin it all.
I feel like we've also landed in the age of stupid, because when I'm on Facebook, for example, which I try to avoid on a regular basis, every couple of days I'm getting these notifications like your photo posts perform 67% better, your text posts perform 40% better, and like I'm being fed all of these things I don't want. What was the tipping point, at least with Mark Zuckerberg and Meta, do you think, when he started sort of shoving down what the social experience should look like down your throat and not really giving you an option to curate what you're seeing?
And that's the biggest point here, Amber, is that you kind of step back. And this is what was for me partially. I left Facebook and I left Twitter, which is like a huge thing for me. That was my backbone of everything we grew. Was I didn't want to optimize my brain. I didn't want to optimize my life. I don't report quarterly to a board of directors about my personal health. I don't have a shareholders in this. I realized I just want to be a human being. And everything I did and say and do, and it was taking away from experiences. You know, that example is before we came live here, we were talking about concerts and that concert experience and live music and how it's such a different world. It literally is that word experience, except when you have it there. And this is not an age thing. This is an every person thing usually, is people holding their phones up to record the concert. I get it if you had taken a shot and sent it to social, but I see people recording whole shows. I'm like, are you going to go back and watch that? And the problem is we don't hold it high in the air, to our face, so we can replace our eyes. We hold it above our face so we can still see, and everybody behind us can't. And that's really the part where social was literally, now it's just about self. And social used to be about who's out there, who can I connect with?
Yeah, I think we've taken a devastating turn. And, you know, I'm hesitant to sort of get into like, oh, you know, yesteryear, it was so much better in the social
back
space.
In our days, 6 years ago, you don't remember. Yeah.
But I do think that is true, because there was a point in social media. I mean, you were kind of like the OG in the Twitter space in Canada and in the US too. I mean, many people look to you in terms of advice on how to connect on Twitter. Yeah. It was true at that time for many years that if you produced good, engaging content and you communicated with your audience of friends and contacts, that you would see growth. That is just not true anymore. I'm not saying growth is always the goal, but I think it's fair to say that it's not about good content or engagement anymore, or authenticity.
And that's it. This is my biggest problem with all of it. It messes with your head. Because if I post it, let's say it's because it isn't about growth, right? If it's just personal, and I'm like, just remove business from it. This is supposed to be people connecting with people, the social of social media, and we connect together. And I have now 1,000 connections, right? Like we had back in the day. And I send it out back in that day, and 700 of you would see it. And we talk with each other. I would hop onto Twitter and would feel like Cheers. Talk about being the old people on the front of our porch, but like Cheers. You walk in and people are like, Scott, what's up? And it was literally about the interaction. And now we don't call it that. We call it engagement scores, because it doesn't matter as long as it's a comment or a share or a like, the algorithm says keep pushing it, keep pushing it. Look, I couldn't be a marketer today. I'm not a marketer today. I yell at people on stage and we write books. I could not work for a brand in marketing. Why? Because marketing, we used to have time. We used to have time to plan. We'd have 6-month programs and a year long. And now you create. It takes the same amount of effort and strength to create great ideas, but they're dead in a day. I remember having a viral video go for 3 months. What? Like Gaga can't go 3 months without putting out a new song again. Like, it's crazy at this point.
And unfortunately, I think there's a trade-off there. And the trade-off with this speed that we're seeing right now is that we don't have necessarily a lot of thoughtful content online. Like, I've always been pressured a little bit to do more on TikTok, which is just not my thing, right? Like I like long form
Yeah.
content. My background is as a journalist. I like engaging conversations, and stuff I do just does not work there, right? I mean,
Right.
I am not going to go and mimic some trend and take 2 hours to shoot it with my partner, Chris. And
Right.
it's like a 10-second video that goes viral. That's not really adding to the value, I think, of what I do in the social space, but there is pressure to do that kind of stuff.
But this is the problem. What we don't realize as an individual or as a business, when you open up a social account on any platform, it's like opening another location. Can you service that location? Are you taking the time of that location? And if you take all that sweat equity and put it into it just for 2% of your following ever to see your videos, you realize, what am I doing this for? Which is why it's always been the aim on my end of things was never about that. I've never once, not in one book, said that social media is great for direct sales, great selling thing. It's great for relationships and conversation. And I can't believe I have to say this, people.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit more about what AI has done to these conversations in the social media space. But I wanted to ask a little bit about your habits today, because like you said, you left Twitter, now, of course, being known as X. You're not on Facebook anymore. I do see you on LinkedIn, and I would say this is one of the platforms that oftentimes I find this to be a little bit toxic as well, in a totally different way.
Yeah. Not toxic like Twitter toxic, but toxic in a totally different way. The broetry. The broetry is obscene. Yeah. The amount of LinkedIn change. So I've been on LinkedIn since 2003, I think. I'm going to throw up in my mouth, but like 2003, early days, when it was simply recruiters and resumes. And you knew somebody in your company was looking for a new job because you got a LinkedIn notification that they updated their profile. Like that's literally was LinkedIn back in the day. It was MLM and recruiters for the most part. Once they brought that news feed out and the content, that's what changed it into a content or social side of stuff. So when I looked at stuff business wise, it's simply looking at the platforms and where would I like to spend time, which is mostly how does it function and who's there. The problem with LinkedIn is it's all about business. So back with Twitter, we had the shielding of, look, we can just talk as people, but almost like the joke with LinkedIn is no matter what happens, it turns into how do you relate B2B sales to da-da-da-da-da-da, like every single thing that happens in the world. Like if the sun blew up, the last thing would be a LinkedIn post on what we could learn for B2B sales before the lights go out. Like it's just like not everything is content. So what do you do there? Well, it's like anything. The problem is we complain about our feed. We're like, and there's nothing good in our feed. It's like putting on crappy music on your stereo and saying, I hate this music. You're like, you picked it. You choose your feed still. You can still hone it. So that's what I do. I am vicious with my feed. I want to make sure I see the stuff I want to see. Some moron saying something and I'm just like, what if it gets me angry? I'm like, why is it in my feed? So I'm going to click this and I'm going to make sure that I can really hone it down. I do the same thing with like my YouTube algorithm. I really want to be able to see the stuff that I feel like seeing and conversing with. And LinkedIn is that right now for me. But on the other side of that, I'm also thinking that it doesn't have to be a platform. And we started looking much more local at things too. I think when the world gets so large, whether it's AI involved or not, you kind of, you look small. And so we've been looking at different things because of things like the US and Canada and what's been going on and where we're going to do things. It's like your feed that we just talked about. The more you look at people talking about, let's say, the Toronto Blue Jays, the more Blue Jays content will come into your feed. That's the same as your brain. The more we start looking local food, we start going to the farmer market more, the more we start looking local for other things. I'm like, oh, we can get our cardboard boxes probably from a more local thing. We can probably do that. And that's the same thing, digital or in person.
It's interesting that you say that because I have been feeling the same way in terms of local impact specifically.
Yes. Yeah.
So on social media, oftentimes, if I ever become sort of an activist about certain issues, it tends to be something that's happening locally, either here in Prince Edward Island, where we are for the summer, or back in Toronto. And yet I think for a lot of people, I think they're in this cycle of sort of forgetting the space that they are in and not using social media the way that it kind of started out, which was in some ways kind of local, right? Like your local business
100%.
Was on Twitter and you were able to engage and support them.
Foursquare check-ins and everything it turned into. Yeah, loved it. And that's where you can have that local feel to it much better, both virtually and in person can still be local.
Exactly. So instead of what it is now, which is like, oh my gosh, all of a sudden, people are enraged and arguing with an influencer who lives on the other side of the world, who's saying outrageous things, and that becomes the thing that they're obsessed about. Like, this is not doing any good for anyone.
No, no. And I think that latching onto that. So here's an example that we did both virtual and local was a few weeks ago. Allison and I went to St. Jacob's Market, which is just outside of Kitchener-Waterloo here in Ontario. And it's fantastic. If you ever get a chance to go, just go. It's phenomenal. And it's food and produce and furniture. It's just amazing. The entire Mennonite area in St. Jacobs. So we go, and I go walk by, and there's an empanadas little booth. And of course, I'm your Huckleberry. I'm good for an empanada any day of the week. So I walk up, and it's one little booth, and I'm just like, I want to try more fresh local things. And this is a local company. And there's a little sign there that says it. And I got a pulled pork one and a cheeseburger empanada because what? And I got them, and my eye twitched. They were so good. They were the greatest, not only empanadas I've ever had, like with the pulled pork. The pulled pork was phenomenal. It was like made, you could feel the love in it. So what do? Of course, being who I go out there and I post on Instagram, these are the best empanadas I've ever freaking had. And then I tag them, their brand starts following me. I see it now. And look, they just opened their store, their cafe. Well, where do you think I'm going tomorrow? I'm going to go out there. And where do you think it's an hour drive from me, right? For an empanada. And I'm going to go again. And I'm going to be the biggest fan because also their owner followed me, sent me a message that thank you so much. This is a big deal for us, opening a whole location. That's so local and small. And I just saw him. He's on vacation right now. They're on a lake just down the road. And I'm like, that's so human. That's so personal. And it's about the empanadas and the food. And now I want a t-shirt. So.
Well, hey, maybe you'll get a t-shirt one day. And I totally agree because that's what I'm finding again. Our son here is working in a restaurant with his cousins all summer, and I'm following everything the restaurant is posting and trying to reshare it. There's local coffee shops here that I try to support. And I feel like the only place that social isn't really broken anymore is at a local level. Like it still kind of can work. Is that a fair comment?
Well, and I think I think it's a very fair comment. And I think one of the biggest reasons for that is their market isn't the world. So when it comes to things like, when the problem is your market's anybody, which is so many people virtually, because, once we opened up the world and, and the cloud and everything else, and everybody's your customer, it's the worst possible thing because then you're always selling locally, right? It's like I can yell at somebody from PEI who's in Texas, but it's not going to do much for me. Right? It's not going to do anything for the business. I want to focus on here. And again, local begets local. We keep doing those type of things. And again, you're only looking as far as your fence goes.
Yeah.
Right. Which actually makes it really work because it's a functional communication tool instead of simply a promotional tool.
And I think, if we kind of zoom out a little bit and we think about what's happened over the past few years, I would argue that you have these characters like Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg who are essentially deciding more or less what these social spaces look like. I would also argue at the same time, they have zero interest in anything that's happening locally within communities. 100%. I mean, like one of the guys wants to go to Mars and colonize Mars. The other one has a bunker in Hawaii. They don't really understand this.
Their intentions are known. Yeah.
Yeah. Sure. And so you get this sort of like messy space, I think, where, I think they think that they are these sort of geniuses of the tech world. And yet at the same time, things that they think are so creative and innovative are things like Elon Musk. Just this morning, I saw him post and say, hey, now you can use Grok to design these videos. And it was a cat with a cigarette on a motorcycle. And like, I was laughing out loud because I'm thinking like, this is the genius that millions of people follow. Yeah. And then Mark Zuckerberg wants your kids to become friends with AI chatbots. I mean, what has happened, Scott?
We went from overusing and beating down the word authentic in everything we did to then, as soon as AI was available, throwing it straight out the window and saying, we now are collaborating with our AI. It makes my stomach hurt what we're running towards. Like we have to like literally zoom out with your lens and look and say, who benefits from a lack of local engagement? Who benefits from people not being involved with their community or being this and just, looking at a screen? People in power benefit. because then you're not doing anything locally. And local is everything. It's literally what you can do, whether it's political or not. Local is your world that you can make change and affect change. And when you're at a world of $1 billion and 1 billion users, they're all specs.
Yeah.
They're all just specs to you and numbers to you. And I really think there's a tidal wave coming of AI, and there's not a lot you can do with certain parts of that wave coming. And I don't want to be better at having that wave hit me. I want to get to some higher land and talk to people who don't want to be part of all this type of stuff, because it's the wrong direction for me. We're outsourced. Like pick the T that you're good with outsourcing. Is it thinking? Is it texting? Is it talking? Like that's what we're allowing AI to do. And LinkedIn is a great example of that, where I get people commenting on a post this morning, and I asked them, the same person 2 days ago, and I'm like, is this AI? They're like, yeah, it gives me a presence. And I'm like, what is so important that you have to have it said, but not important enough for you to be there to say it? Why are we trying to have presence without being present in these places? We lose. Look, Amber, I'm trying to not to rant as much as possible. I'm trying to contain this as possible.
This is the place to rant.
Look, AI is here. There's obviously no doubt about that. There is many, many functions. But when you outsource your brain, you outsource that rep. And what I mean by that is, if you go and watch me do a talk 10 years ago, watch one of my keynotes. I've done over 500, right? Watch one. They're disgusting. They're terrible. I am embarrassed to watch myself speak 15 years ago.
Why?
Because I've improved so much because of the reps. And don't worry, I'm not hating myself too much here. I'm saying it's the reps. Every time I did a talk, I got marginally better. Every time I write something, I get marginally better because it's reps. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. You doing an interview, go back to your first interview. What is it the same as right now? Of course not. It's miles apart. When we outsource the rep to AI, we never improve, which means we get dumber. If we don't get a raise every year in our job, we're actually losing money. If we don't create the thought, we're actually getting dumber because we're not keeping up with human beings as they go. And this is what we're willing to do because it's linked. And my problem is, it's a gateway drug. A LinkedIn post is a gateway drug to AI. People are like, no. AI came up with it, but I edited it. Oh, okay. I saw somebody said, I collab with AI. Son of a, you don't collab with AI. You command AI. Collaboration happens between two human beings. They are not your content partner. They're not your bro. It's AI.
Yeah.
Stop trying to make excuses, because now, Scott, actually, AI doesn't write the whole thing for me. It just comes up with some of the ideas. Okay, cool. And then it'll write it for you, but you'll edit it. But now it won't. Now, what happens as you work the model? You give the model the rep, not you. The model, the AI model, gets your rep, so it gets better at writing your content. Eventually, it's so good, you don't even edit, but you delete a period and put it back in to say you've edited it. Now AI is just now posting for you on LinkedIn. You realize I don't even have to go. And now LinkedIn is all just AI posting and commenting to each other. I am on this planet to connect with human beings. If you are too, then that's what authenticity is.
And I think you bring up a really good point. And I think for those of us who are in the arena, and what I mean by that, who are getting in front of audiences, who are taking questions human to human, you really have to know your stuff. I think about writing my newsletter as an example. I've written hundreds and hundreds of issues every Tuesday, like never miss one of those issues. I have never outsourced any of that writing to AI ever. And the reason is because I do that, to your point, as sort of the reps, right? Like building the muscle and
100%.
Knowing where I come from, knowing my stance, knowing what I believe in, thinking critically. All of that comes out every Tuesday as a practice, as much for me as it is for the 10,000 subscribers who get the newsletter, because I am confident when I go on stage that I then know what I'm talking about. So for those of us in the arena, it becomes more difficult to kind of fake that knowledge. And so it's easy to hide behind your computer and your phone and be one of those keyboard warriors and
until
use
it's
AI
live, until it's
until
in
it's live.
person.
And then all of a sudden people are like, hey, I remember you wrote this. What did you mean? And you cannot articulate what you were saying because it wasn't you in the first place.
There are lawyers filing things in court from AI. I've watched a video of a judge saying, "What is this?" You're like, "Oh, I don't know. I just asked ChatGPT." I'm
crazy.
like, aren't you embarrassed? Aren't you like, even something like Otter AI, like the note-taking app that's so popular in everything, in every platform, everywhere else. And I used to teach at Sheridan. I used to be a prof at Sheridan. This is like 20 years ago now. So right when laptops were really getting popular in class, people were started taking or using note-taking. And look, taking notes, I get it. By the way, my GPA is measured in decimal points, not anything else. So I am not commenting on any student's abilities or doing this for learning. The problem with AI taking notes, whether you're in class for school or you're in a meeting, and if you don't want to retain the meeting stuff, no worries, then ignore this. Retention is increased exponentially when you take the note because you are thinking it and then writing it, whether it's written, handwritten, or typed. When you remove that, you remove the most effective part of note taking. And there's no more, it's an adult learning principle. It's like basic adult learning principles here. You will not, retention is so key unless it's you're cramming for the exam, you're never going to do it again. Fine, figure something out, but you're not going to retain the information. And if you're supposed to be a thought leader or an expert in our arena, you're not retaining it. Why are you here? Like, why are you? I did a talk recently in Memphis to financial planners, and a lot of things marketing there were, what do you think they were? It was AI will do it for you. We'll find you the clients. We'll write the articles for you. And I just have to, and I looked at the audience, and of course, because you and I have to be careful on stage because we want to keep doing this for professionally once in a while. So I look at this audience with all AI sponsors, and I'm like, hey, so if AI is so great at all these things, why do I need a financial planner?
Exactly.
Everybody thinks the AI truck stops before it hits them, right? AI, like I see CEOs sitting around. They're just like, this is great. We're going to lay off. You could lay off. AI can replace a CEO almost the easiest out of any position. I've seen I've seen HR departments send people to AI interviews. I'm not even going to talk about how dehumanizing it's for somebody. I'm not even going to talk about there's been AI programs for years that are already removing people from job applications before they even get to people. What I'm talking is if you are in HR, if you're watching or listening right now and you're like, you know what, I'm good with AI interviewing, you will be out of a job in 2 years. HR, as we know it, will be, I was in HR. Will be entirely gone if we keep going this way and looking at HR as we can outsource humanity.
And I think you bring up such a critical point here, because I will say that I use AI all the time, but I use it for totally different things. I don't use it to outsource my critical thinking ever. I don't use it to outsource my writing. What do I use it for? Well, I may use it to analyze data because it's a lot better and faster than I am.
100%. As long as you're okay with that data going in.
Exactly. And, or maybe it's, again, you have to be careful with this, but if it's sort of health records or I'm trying to understand certain terms and the AI does a better job of explaining them to me, 100%. Then I use it for that. So I agree, it is incredibly powerful and there is a place for AI in our lives that I think it will have some pretty impressive changes that will help humans. But to your point, it doesn't mean that we replace the human experience. And that's where I think a lot of people miss the point. Like, as writers, I haven't written as many books as you have, but as writers, like, why do you write? Like, I write to learn and I write to teach. And I don't want to outsource that because that feels inauthentic to me, right?
But what you said right there, because that feels inauthentic to me. And there's where the line is that people are figuring out right now. Where does it feel inauthentic for you? And the problem that I'm seeing, and again, I'm more than willing to be corrected on this, but there's a huge chunk of people that are trying to figure out where they feel good authentically. And all they're seeing is, this is how the experts are doing it because I see so many people talking about this, then this is the right, so it is authentic. So I'm not blaming people a lot of times who are using AI to write their stuff. I blame the experts who are saying, this is how you're supposed to do it. And this is how everybody's doing it. Just like that's how I got mad with automation. Or my entire brand is just me getting mad at stuff, I think. Oh, my goodness.
Well, I think, we see that now where I see roles for AI in so many different places, but I just think people have taken it too far. I think that's what it comes down to. And I think, unfortunately, when you do get people out there who are saying that, hey, now AI companions can fill a void in your life, that can be your potential partner or your therapist.
But and this is this above everything. If I believe differently, I would be celebrating AI coming right now. If the productivity gains we are and are going to get with AI were passed down to the workers, then I am all for so many parts of AI. Like we're talking 4-day work week here. We're talking like so many things we could do to save that. But as we've seen since the 80s and 90s, the worker doesn't benefit from this type of stuff. It's not going to be your job's easier. It's you're laid off, which is why, again, in business, I'm looking more local stuff too. It's like I posted something like a year ago on LinkedIn. I'm like, when is it going to be the unique selling positioning that you don't use AI, which is like your big selling thing to people? It's like, I'm going after companies that say that right now. Like, I want to work with that type of thing because also I don't want my stuff outsourced. I don't want it put into a system, but also your and our books are all in it. They are already all taken.
And I think you get to the point, I think, in our lives right now in 2025, where the things that we can experience as humans, that human to human relationship, can never be replaced by AI. Like we were talking before we started recording, I just went to the Osheaga Music Festival. Like I'm never going to replace that experience with AI or virtual reality. I don't care what anyone says. You know, the fact that I can sort of feel people near me and their energy and their excitement and just that thrill of seeing live music. And I would argue to some extent with public speaking, right? You know, we've both seen amazing speakers getting into a room and seeing someone's face and the way that they move around the stage and tell those stories. Public speaking in itself, to me, is one of the most important skills that the next generation can build, because that's just not going to be replaced by AI as much as people try holograms on stage and all those different things. It just, those things generally just kind of suck, and they're going to continue to suck because you can't replicate that human experience, and we should stop trying to do that, right? We should try to improve maybe the health of people through using AI tools, or maybe it's productivity to a certain extent, and giving workers a break who are already overworked and underpaid. But the tech leaders, that's not where their heads are.
Their heads aren't obviously. They're who knows where somebody's head is who has that much wealth and power, right? It's just, it certainly isn't looking at how my day is going to go today. And so I want to affect the people that I'm connected to and I'm near. And I think that there's still ways to do that on every level, whether, like I said, AI is here, and people are like, well, I had somebody, I'm going to remain calm. I had somebody comment on one of my LinkedIn posts because I was telling people, look, you got to be careful. Like, people are putting client information into this stuff. They're putting and you can't put that toothpaste back in the tube. And somebody had written on one of the comments, they're like, well, Scott, change is hard. And I'm like, listen to me very carefully. We talk about my topic is disruption. I understand change is hard. It's that you're not usually told you're at a watershed moment in that moment. The problem is we're also in 11 different watershed moments, right? Right? Like, we are historically in so many parts. Like, if you went back to certain times in history, you'd be like, oh my God, imagine you were there. Most people are like, you didn't realize in the time. This is a watershed moment now. For people younger than 50, this is an important moment right now. I'm sorry, I keep using terms that aren't used much anymore. Now, right now, the things that are decided this moment, August 2025, around this time, will affect us forever.
I just want to go back to something you said, because you had like 3 different things in terms of different directions we could have gone with this conversation. But I loved your point about how people on social media can easily sort of detach to the realities in front of them.
Yes.
And I see that happening in the social space in such a significant way. And I think AI is only going to continue to fuel this idea of like, hey, I should be obsessed with this issue, and I'm going to go down this rabbit hole, and that's all I'm going to care about. And you're right. Who does that serve? That serves our political leaders. That serves our big business leaders. That serves the big tech leaders. If if they know that your head is in one space only, and these algorithms continue to feed you information that doesn't actually affect you on a day-to-day basis, or you have no control over, you're removed from that pressure that needs to be upon them. And that actually worries me more than anything.
So especially when they're allowed to, suppress things as well and take things out of your feed that you should see or should have seen. And that's where the fear is. And we can extrapolate it out with our kids. It's just like a fear for them, because also that, that brain isn't fully formed. And so what is that doing? And all this stuff that's coming out now. And, there's so much that the problem is we just think whoever says something, we just assume that they have our best intentions at heart. And it's rarely the case. That's why it's each other is the connection. It's will that be another platform that'll come out eventually? I don't know. I think it's going to be much smaller. I think back. It's not like I'm yearning to it, even though I'm old and I yearn for all these different things. Is that like it's almost like a Reddit level type of stuff? Not Reddit as a bunch of different things. I know what comes with Reddit. I've been there a long time, but like local things, like I use the Bushwick Reddit to find the artist that made the banana painting behind my head here, in the Bushwick subreddit, and find the best thing. Like, those localized things are real important. And the problem is social. The thing that excited me most about social media is the problem now, because you can connect with anybody, anywhere, anytime.
It's a really good point. Just one last question for you, and I could speak to you forever because we have so much in common on this journey. But I hate to ask people to predict the future, because I think it's very difficult to do that much more than, say, 6 months, a year, 2 years down the road. But I think about this question all the time because my partner, Chris, who he is saying to me a lot as of late, like, it doesn't really matter on social media, like how many views you get and your engagement. The authenticity is the most important thing. Like, can people trust you? And I've been just really digging into this idea. How do you see the future of social going, and what should people keep top of mind if they still do want to be in some of these spaces?
I think and I agree with Chris 100% on that. That first of all I think we have to figure out why you're there, because the reason why you're there now or why you were there before doesn't have to be the same reason today. So when you look at those things and say, because like you're saying, well, you have to be more authentic, but then we have to keep that sentence going. Why? Well, if I'm on there for relationships, and the point is ignoring the noise and connecting with individuals I think I have a connection with, or I could have. If it's a brand, well, I'm there to increase my brand reputation. Okay, how? Like, you got to boil this stuff down. Like, it's like saying I'm going to use the phone today for my business. What the hell does that mean? Right? It's a function. Social is a function. It's a platform. There's pictures, videos, people. Why are you doing it? And could that time be better spent elsewhere? And that's really, you have to sit down and say, what am I going to use this for? Because people will get on there and they're like, well, this has never changed. They'll get on there and they'll say, well, today I'm selling a house on this street, post. It doesn't work. Nobody's bought the house. I'm like, if you walked into a networking event and said, hey, everybody, buy from me, and walked out, same thing would happen. Why are you there? And also, are other people there for that same thing? There are so many. And I always, I get mad so much and I fly off the handle about things, but I still insist, I guarantee there are great people you haven't met yet or connected that will influence your life, and they can be found virtually. So I still am a fan of that stuff. Like, I found Allison. I found my wife through that. I outkicked my coverage so much. I'm not even in the same league as this human being. And I've met my best friend that I married, and it's been 11 years of marriage so far and 7 books together. And that's because of Twitter. I believe that your local can be a huge effect, but it doesn't mean you also can't meet other people. And there are some killer people out there. Most people are great. The problem is that the bad ones take over, and we refuse to let that happen.
I love that. And just before I let you go, because you brought up Allison and some of the work that you guys do, I was in the bookstore recently and I saw a bunch of your books, which were getting a lot of great shelf space.
Indigo came out.
Business. Yes, amazing. So where can people go if they want to buy your books, connect with you? What's the best thing for them to do?
Fellow Canadians, Indigo came and said, do you mind if we put out all 4 Unbooks as a Canadian exclusive paperback series, the Unquadrilogy. We're like, yes, please. So all 4 Uns are, Allison went through and updated a bunch of stuff. By the way, Allison's the writer of the 2 of us. I'm the one on stage that yells, and we come up with all the ideas, and then she's just an awesome writer. So those 4 have now on the Indigo shelves across the country. So kudos and compliments. Drop them anytime to Unmarket on Instagram. Any complaints or insults, just Amber, let them know your handle or whatever, and they can send it to you, whatever. That's fine.
Yes, it will. Yeah, it won't be the first time.
Yeah, but everything is Unmarketing, the company for us. So.
Awesome. Well, Scott, thank you so much for joining me today. And I know we'll chat soon. We met on Twitter many years ago, so I certainly appreciate that.
One of my OGs. You're one of my OGs on you. Yes. You and Chris are both one of my OGs from Twitter. So
good old connections.
Love it.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're listening to The Amber Mac Show on Canada Talks, Sirius XM 167.
Thanks so much for joining us this episode. Coming up later this month, we're going to talk to a former nurse who started a business that leverages the power of wearable tech and healthcare support. Also, if you want to be part of the show, we're still looking for your favorite tech shows and movies. All you have to do is visit ambermactalkback.com to leave us a voicemail of up to 90 seconds.
I can't wait to listen to more of these voicemails. As always, you can also find us on YouTube and across social media. I'm at Amber Mac and Jeff is at Jeff MacArthur. Probably the best places to find us are over on X and Blue Sky. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.
You're listening to The Amber Mac Show on Canada Talks, Sirius XM 167.